Stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I see we're all here. This would be the time for open forum. Is there anybody that would like to speak that is not on the agenda? Okay, we will go on with review and approval of minutes.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Review and approve the agenda.
Changes.
Mr. Chair, no changes to the agenda.
Okay,
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
One on 511 on the out-of-state travel. Just a question of what the out-of-state travel is for, and then obviously the county board always wants to make sure that whoever's going is coming back and there's some good reason for them to go and come back and obviously either train or bring back the useful information that they've received. So just maybe a brief explanation from somebody. I don't know, Jim is here, I don't know, but maybe Deb would probably be the
Mr. Chair, if I can speak to this, Jason and Nate are both in a meeting this morning, so they asked if there were any questions, if I could give some background. This is for the Esri user conference, and if you might recall, the Esri software is our main GIS infrastructure software that we utilize for maintaining and managing our GIS system. This is for their user conference in July in San Diego. It is basically all of the GIS brains, if you will, the users who utilize the software coming together. I think there's over almost 20,000 users who will be at this conference who are going to hear about some of the new things that are going to be coming up, how to better manage the infrastructure, what some of the challenges and pitfalls might be seeing at this point in time. There are a variety of different topics that are presented at this conference. One of the biggest things that Nate has noted is that there are 3 projects that he feels will have direct benefit from his attendance at this conference. One being the Experience Builder app for community services recreation initiatives. One being the image server for housing imagery and hosting in DroneSense. And then also upgrading the hub site to new software for internal and public use. So he does feel that there is some direct impact that he can learn at this conference. Again, the plan would be to bring everything back. He would be putting together a post-conference summary of the information that he has learned to share with all of the users here, as well as to be putting more information forward to the direct staff who are utilizing the day-to-day aspects of the GIS system.
Sounds good, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, another question, or a comment and then a question. You know, if you look at the consent agenda, there's actually a lot of donations, one from there's Sortoma Club, Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union, Brainerd JCs. You know, I know I can speak for the county board to say that we appreciate people that volunteer, and I believe the mounted patrol is all volunteer, if I'm not mistaken. And so maybe Andy, the chief deputy, if you want to just explain a little bit about the mounted patrol and what they do and how valuable they are to the sheriff's department. I think they are.
You are correct, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I actually was the lead for Mounted Patrol for since 2007. So they hold a unique part of my heart because of what they do and how they serve the community. They are a connection through the Sheriff's Department for search and rescue that we utilize They are also part of a contingent that we use for traffic duty and some of our parade activities. Local communities that do not have supportive law enforcement can be helped by our mounted patrol to come into their communities to help with just a visual sense of law enforcement. Obviously, if someone riding a horse is something that's a little more visual than officers on the ground, which is a benefit to the sheriff's department. But even that, we have our mounted patrol members doing stuff in regards to search and rescue that's unique to horses, and that is, maybe we've talked about this before, that they have a sense of finding people that we can't have with dogs, and that is the height of a horse when it's riding through a forested area. They can sense and smell the human presence at a distance a lot better than a dog can because of how it stance. It's obviously taller. I got firsthand knowledge of how that works in a real-world setting in regards to seeing it work in a training scenario, watching a horse walk through an 80-acre field and finding a small boy that's laying down in some tall grass out of a distance of about a half a mile, which is crazy to me to think that a horse can sense that. So there's advantages having the mounted patrol being able to support us in that area, but also just the actual numbers that are all volunteer. These people dedicate their time and energy monthly. The last year that I was in charge of mounted patrol, we had 13 events that they were involved with, and it's always growing. People are constantly asking for the use of the mounted patrol. So their dedication and time is just unmatched because of how much they have to prepare for these trainings or these events, but they're through their training. And we ask a lot of them. So we do not have a lot of funding for the mounted patrol, so these donations that we get from these different groups throughout the county are a benefit to that team immensely. They actually give those monies because sometimes we'll assist them in their activities, such as the JC's event. We have mounted patrol people, believe it or not, in the wintertime working on the ice and for traffic control on those events. They help out during Crowing Power Days, and they do a lot of activities for us in the county. So we really appreciate those donations that they send to us because it keeps that team prepared, gets them their training. Some of the training that they are actually going to now is quite expensive, and this offsets those costs to that team member. It basically gives their personal time to us at the county.
That sounds good. And Mr. Chairman, I don't want to take your thunder away, but I think I can speak for the county board to say thank you to these groups. The chairman and I were actually in the Sertoma Club for a long, long time, and appreciate them and everybody else and the volunteers that, volunteer for this county and for the Sheriff's Department. Appreciate that. You know, it reminds me, could I tell you a brief story? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, in my early years, like when I was like 3 or 4 years old, my dad actually worked for the Crowing Power for 14 years, and he was stationed up at Pine River, and so that's where we lived, in Pine River. And my dad had a bulldozer, and he was gonna go out in the woods and clear some woods, I guess. And when you're 3 or 4 years old, you want to go with your dad, and you want to be on this big machine. And Dad said no. And so then this little boy, me, 3 or 4 years old, went out in the woods and got lost. And so the fire department and the sheriff's department and everybody from Pine River were looking, and they finally found me asleep under a tree. So that was, there you go, a bunch of volunteers looking for a little boy.
Yeah, it's impressive to see the dedication of these people
Absolutely.
and how they're dedicated to the team.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Chairman, if nobody else...
Well, I will ask, is there anything else
Okay.
for anybody else on the consent agenda, if you don't mind?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, third, no.
Second.
Third, whatever. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Administrative Services.
Mr. Chair, I'm wearing 2 hats today, so I will also take the administrative services. I know I don't have one on.
Hey, I don't
but
see 'em.
Imagine it's there.
Okay.
I'll also take the administrative services report. There are a couple of agenda items that we have today for administrative services. The first being to appoint the election judges for the 2024 primary and general elections for precincts 1, 2, 3, and 4 in unorganized territory. We are asking that these be appointed at a rate of $25 an hour for our head judges and $20 per hour for regular judges. This is an increase from what they were paid in 2022. In '22, they were paid $18 for regular judges and $20 for head judges. The change is basically looking to reflect the environment that our election judges are working in with the amount of responsibility and expectations that they have in those polling places. Additionally, there have been some changes to IRS guidelines with regard to how election judges have to be considered employees. They have to be onboarded as employees now. They're not subject to PARA. They would be subject to FICA and Medicare for any amounts over $2,100, but we really don't expect many of our election judges to reach that threshold. They also can request that we withhold federal and state tax, but they're not subject to having that withheld unless they request it. But we also wanted to make sure that since these are going to be reflected as employees, that it's in line with what we're also paying for other seasonal type positions that we have in the county. So this was brought in line to be like what we are paying our AIS inspectors as well.
Administrator, in other jurisdictions other than this is unorganized territory, in this, is there a set fee for like the cities and townships also, or is this is ours?
Mr. Chair, that's a great question. This would be just for the unorganized territory judges. Every city and township is responsible for setting their own rates
Okay,
for
that's what I
their
was
judges. We do usually survey our municipalities during the year just to see where everybody is at from a consistency basis. Most cities and townships, we have seen increases happening over the last
Okay.
several years. This is actually kind of bringing us in line with where we've seen some of these other groups as well.
And this is a request for action?
Yes, please. We would like to request to appoint the judges on file and to authorize the payment amounts at the rates noted.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Who do you want the second to go to, please?
Yeah, you-
I couldn't tell, it was coming in both ears at the same time.
Your choice.
Should I flip a
it's
coin?
up to you.
Good.
Yeah.
Steve seconded it.
Oh, geez.
Thank you.
Okay, next, establishment of Crow Wing County absentee ballot board.
Mr. Chair, by statute, we are required to establish an absentee ballot board for the state primary and general elections that are upcoming. The board brings uniformity to the processing of accepting and rejecting absentee ballots. All ballots that are generated through Crow Wing County are accepted and rejected by the absentee ballot board. The ballot board in Crow Wing County, as it has been since this law went into effect in 2016, will consist of election judges representing different major political parties, as well as deputized county auditors who will also assist in that process. So we were asking for the appointment of those judges on file for the primary and general elections.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so a question for the county administrator. So what is the difference between this board and the canvassing board? I know that's a good
It is,
question.
oh, that is a good question, Mr. Chair, yes. No, there is a little bit of confusion, I think,
Yeah.
around what is a ballot board versus a canvassing board. So think about it in the terms of before an election and after an election. The absentee ballot board is working before the election to accept and reject any of these ballots that are coming in from voters who are voting by absentee ballot. And when we talk about accepting and rejecting, what are they looking for? They're reviewing that the name and address of the voter is the same as the application that they submitted for their ballot. They're reviewing that the voter signed the signature line on the envelope. They're reviewing that the voter had a witness as was required, and they're reviewing that the identification number that was submitted on the application matches the identification number that was submitted on the envelope. That's really all they're looking at when they're doing the accepting and rejecting. The envelopes are not opened, the ballots are not processed at that point in time. Another function of the ballot board happens leading up to can start now the 18 days before Election Day. Here in Crow Wing, we're probably still looking at about 7 days before Election Day, where you start opening those ballots, separating them from the identifying information, and then they can be scanned through the scanner without results being tallied until after polls close on election night. The canvas board occurs after the election. And the canvas board is made up of 2 county commissioners, the county auditor, the district court administrator, and the mayor of the largest city in the county. The canvas board's responsibility is to certify those unofficial election results from election night to make them be official.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so the absentee ballot board, I would assume that not every single ballot is passed through their hands. Are they looking at every single ballot, or are they there in case there's a dispute or there's something awry on a ballot?
Mr. Chair, for the ballot board, Commissioner Coring, for the ballot board itself, they're looking at every ballot that is done through the mail. So anybody who applies for an absentee ballot through the mail or who votes in person at our counter between 45 days and 18 days before, they will be looking at every one of those ballot envelopes to start with. They are looking at every one of those ballot envelopes. Because if there is an error, if a voter forgot to put their ID number or forgot to get a witness, and the board determines that that ballot should be rejected, we're required to send that voter a new packet so that they can have a chance to make sure their vote counts. Where the ballot board would not be touching any absentee ballots is during that 18 days of early voting prior to Election Day, where the voter comes to the counter, they get their ballot, they fill out their application, get their ballot, and put it right into the ballot box or into the tabulating machine at that point in time. The ballot board does not have to have any action with those ballots.
And then one more question, if you don't mind. So if they come in that 18 days before, and once they've loaded that ballot into that tabulator, that's it. I mean, if God forbid, some candidate died or something, and they had voted for that person, they wanted to say, hey, I think I'm going to vote for somebody else, they can't go back and claw that back.
That is correct. The clawback period ends 18 days before the election. Once a ballot is put into the tabulator, into the ballot box, the
It's
voter
done.
no longer can make any
That's it.
changes.
Okay. And then one more.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you have all these absentee ballots, the 18th day before, is that when you start opening them up and start running them through the tabulator?
That is correct.
Okay.
18 days before is when that ballot board will start opening those up and running them through the tabulator.
Okay.
When we say running them through the tabulator, it's scanning them through the tabulator, but it's not tabulating any of the results or anything until after 8 p.m. on Election Day.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And one just other thing to note about these members of the ballot board, one of the things we are also suggesting for this year and asking for is that their rate of pay would be the $25 per hour. We are going to make a change from what we've done in the past. Again, now because election judges have to be considered employees, we do not pay our employees mileage to come to work. So we're increasing the rate of pay for these judges, but we will no longer pay mileage for them to come in for the time that they are here. This is also providing some consistency because they're a ballot board member. So some of our members might live in the city of Brainerd or Baxter. Some of our ballot board members live in Wolford Township or Fairfield Township or Jenkins. We want to make sure that everybody's being treated equally and they shouldn't be enriched one way or the other just based on where they're coming from.
Thank you, Deb. Is there anybody else have anything to ask
Because it says
in
20.
regards to this?
I'm sorry, $20 per hour. Did I say 25? It's
$25
$20
for
per
the
hour with
judges.
no
Yep,
mileage
yep.
for the ballot board
Yep.
judges.
Mr. Chairman, I would move the resolution to establish the establishment of a Crow Wing County absentee ballot board.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. A resolution. Was it resolution or motion?
That was a resolution. But the motion was to move the resolution.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next on the agenda, we have the county sheriff, and I think we will, if you have anything else you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I just want to give you an update. We had a pretty busy weekend this last holiday weekend. It was a great time for everyone. Fortunately, we had no fatalities, which was an awesome thing to have on a holiday weekend. The biggest thing I wanted to update you with is our jail program. We've actually been working in the jail to fix some of the repairs that were required from DOC last year. That started about 2 weeks ago. One of the cells has the repairs completed, and we're waiting for DOC to give the final approval that we can start doing the rest of the cells. We did have our DOC review last week. There were some concerns that were brought up during the review we discussed earlier about, and some other things that came up that I will be working with the jail administrator about here in the near future. And one of the minor instances that's going to be taken care of is our dishwasher apparently is not producing the right heat. So we're going to potentially have to buy a dishwasher in that review. So yeah, there was very thorough and look over the jail to make sure we're in compliance. But other than that, everything is going well. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask.
Anything else from the
Just a
board?
question on that one,
Oh,
you know,
of course.
you almost make it sound like it's suggestions. I mean, do they actually do I know when I was a dairy farmer, the dairy inspector would come every 6 months, and then I'd have a sheet and they'd put on there what I needed to correct. Do they actually do that, or is
Yes,
it?
they do.
Okay,
They'll provide us with actually the written form of all the concerns that they had. They call them violations. They are truly violations that we have to look at in regards to repair. Once the violation gets to a certain point, they'll have mandates that we have to make changes immediately. So right now, fortunately, our jail's been running pretty smoothly, and we do not have a lot of violations. So at this point in time, they're going to give us a list of all those violations that we have to actually review and determine, what we can fix right now and what we can't fix right now. Like, say, the dishwasher is one of the concerns. But once you have too many violations in the jail, then they turn from violations to mandates. They make you repair and do things within the jail that they say are violations. So fortunately, we don't have a lot of violations because our jail is running quite well. But I haven't seen the final report yet. She just called back on Friday to sit down and talk some about violations. And the final report should be back to us hopefully by the end of this week.
so, Mr. Chair, Andy, when you get the final report, could you forward that on to the county administrator so that she could give that to the county board? I know the chairman likes to have a lot of information. If we're going to be making a decision on paying for some corrections, I think having that information ahead of time so we can cruise over it would probably be a good idea.
Yes.
What do you think, Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
I do, and especially when it comes with that cell that you've got all ready to go and you're waiting for DOC, I would like to see that report when the DOC looks at it, and if they can find something else that you need to fix, it'd be nice to get that.
Yes, we'll do. I've already talked to the jail administrator, Troy Schilling, about that. As soon as we get a copy of the report, we'll forward it to Debbie, and
Yep.
we'll make sure you guys get
That would
copies of
be
all
great.
that so you know what's going on. And if there's any explanation on that, we'll hopefully have that in that same report when she gets those to us. So,
Anything else from the board for Chief Deputy? Okay, thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you. County Attorney.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I don't have anything today. I thought I would show up in person rather than being on Teams since this is County Administrator Erickson's first county board meeting. I was just here to show support.
Well, I don't think Deb will need any help there, but thank you for being here, sir. Anything for the attorney from us?
Mr. Chair,
Ask.
Mr. Chair, do we have an update, Don, for the, what's that easement?
The Cartway?
The Cartway. Is that thing still going, or
It's
or we
actually-
don't have anything to do with it, I guess?
We, Mr. Kruger, on behalf of...
Your microphone on?
It is it not
Okay.
working?
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Kruger actually petitioned to take the county's position in that litigation. It's in court again this morning. I've just been monitoring it. The court found in our favor, or the board's decision, but did award more money than the board had given in your decision. And that's what the attorney representing Mr. Unger, or not Mr. Unger, Mr. Nelson had requested a review of that, and that's what they're currently litigating, is how much money is or isn't owed, and whether or not attorney's fees can be awarded.
Okay,
When there's a final conclusion, I'll make sure that I get it to y'all.
okay. And then, Mr. Chair, another question, I don't know if it's a question or a comment. As I'm in my 12th year, you just run into people that are, upset about paying property taxes, and they wonder what their taxes are being paid, what they're going for. I always tell them, well, so you got roads to travel in on, and you got the sheriff's department. If you need somebody, the 911, they're going to be there. But part of it too is, Don, is your department, and I remember at one point, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had 4 murder cases going on, and there's some bad guys out there, and Don and your staff are working to make sure those people are not going to get out and hurt somebody again. And so just, I don't know if you want or you can, but did you wrap all those up? I don't even know where you're at with that, or can you even talk about it, or?
3 of the 4 have been concluded. 2 went to trial. The last one, the Mosier case, starts trial July 8th this summer. Was supposed to be last December. There was a continuance granted at the request of the defense for more time to get ready, so we start July 8th picking a jury. At least that's what's currently scheduled. Mr. LaFleur was convicted, Mr. Munger was convicted, and Mr. McClellan was also convicted, but that was a plea, not a trial.
Well, hopefully, Mr. Chairman and County Attorney, hopefully that's the end of that streak, and we don't have any more of that in Crow Wing County for a long time, I hope. So, knock on wood, yeah. Thanks, Don.
You bet.
Do a great job.
Anything else from the board? Thank you, Don. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, board members, we did not have a senior management team meeting yesterday as there was a holiday, so there's nothing to report there. The second item under my agenda is the inconsistency in hours, and Administrator Emeritus Houle is going to present on that topic since he started working on that
Minister
before.
Emeritus, I like that.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this issue came up at the senior management team meeting probably about 2 months ago. And so, I started on the issue, so I might as well finish on the issue. Office hours were established by the county board 50 years ago, literally 50 years ago, not today, but this year. And over the course of time, that has slowly ebbed, I would say. And so there are a number of county offices now that either the lobby or the building is closed at 4:30. So we have kind of a mix of office hours that we have right now. That's kind of an inconsistency in the hours, and I think it makes it difficult for the public to understand when we are open. So we did a little bit of searching to find out what are the facts around this case. And what I can tell you is that all of the tenants in the county building, that includes court administration, Mid-Minnesota Drug Testing, the Workforce Center, Soil and Water Conservation District, the University of Minnesota Regional Extension Office, all of them close at 4:30. Those are located in our buildings. Of the 87 counties in Minnesota, we believe that there are only 4 counties who are open until 5. And you'd have to travel about 150 miles in any direction in order to find one of those. Can we put the map up? Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Thank you, Teresa. She's already on it. If you look at the map, it's probably some of the most compelling information. You can see Steele County, pretty close to the southern border, is open until 5. There are 3 counties on the southern border that are open till 5. That's how far you got to travel in order to find another county that's open until 5. We also believe that there are, 3 counties who have a mixed closing time between 4:30 and 5, kind of like ours is. There are 6 counties in Minnesota that close at 4. There are no cities in Crow Wing County that close past 4:30, and the counter and the phone traffic. So we thought, okay, well, how many people are coming to see us between 4:30 and 5? And so we tracked in land services from April 1st to May 14th for 34 days. Of those 8 days, or 24% of the time, no one came to the counter between 4:30 and 5. On 18 of the 34 days, 56% of the time, it was less than 2 people who came during that time frame. Since we've last visited this topic, and it has come up before, and I've not been particularly supportive of making changes before, I think that Things have changed, however, since we initially considered this. Many of the services that we offer now are offered 24/7, 365, because we offer them through our website. So things like applying for a building permit can be done online from the comfort of your home on Christmas Day if that's when you wish to do so. You can pay your taxes that way as well if you wish to do so. There are a number of things now that we allow you to do online, property records. We just don't need to have the doors unlocked for those services to be made available to people. We saw that during COVID. We never stopped providing services during COVID, even though the doors were locked for some periods of time. What's really compelling, I think, to me is the competitive environment in which we try to recruit employees from. And so right now, we're starting to hear from people that they can have 2.5 hours more with their families for roughly comparable wages by going to work for one of our surrounding counties. That kind of a competitive disadvantage in this labor force is not a great idea. And so I stand here today and suggest to you that we should consider changing our office hours to be very much the norm for government offices, 8 to 4:30 with a half an hour lunch hour. I put it forward for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions about it.
Dr. Houle, one of the things I have is, I totally agree with it, that we should go to 4:30. I'll just leave that out there. The challenge I face is if somebody's coming down from Gale Lake Township, it's almost an hour drive. If they don't know that it's changing to 4:30, they've taken a 2-hour trip for nothing. Can we make sure this gets on the community focus, that we get really good press out here that we are changing those hours? I mean, we can't reach everybody, but at least we should make an attempt to do that. I think it's probably something that should have been changed years ago, but it is being changed now, and it's probably, I think, time well due.
And I would ask if the board decides to act on this, that they make the effective date June 3rd to give us time to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, so I know that when we talked about this in committee, the chair was concerned about this and wanted to maybe phase it in, and I had a great idea of phasing it in a minute over 30 weeks, and I'm just wondering if he was still in favor of that, or?
A minute over 30 weeks?
Yeah,
is
a
that what
minute,
this- Oh, is that how you're thinking?
We just phase
I don't
it
know
like
if that would work.
4:59,
I don't know if that would work, Commissioner.
4:58, 4:57.
I don't know if that would work,
Okay,
Commissioner.
all right, sounds good.
But I would just like to make sure that we do give some, as much as we can, some upfront notice out there to let people know that it is being changed.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have. Anybody
Okay.
else have anything? Paul,
Mr.
do you have
Chairman,
a
if
question?
there's no other questions, I would move the request for board action to change the office hours for Crow Wing County.
Effective.
Effective,
June 3rd.
is it in?
It is not.
Oh,
Not in there,
June
so-
3rd.
Second.
I have some discussion. Is June 3rd going to be enough time? What I'm thinking is all of the townships should probably have time to, tell their people too, which would make July 1st better.
It is your prerogative.
June 1st is so soon that,
I'm open to suggestions, so it's board decision.
I don't know. I just know that like Lake Edward
Mr. Chair,
Township is-
Yes.
if I may, I think the traffic that you saw with the traffic count that we did over the course of the months to the different departments, as well as the number of phone calls that were coming in, would indicate that there's not a huge amount of folks who are coming in between now and then. And I don't think it would have a big impact on the general public if we started it in June versus July. I do think it would have an impact on the employees if we're looking, as Mr. Houle said, that we are hoping to maybe get some employee incentive out of this, that's giving them that extra 2.5 hours a week. If we take 1 month of our 3-month summer out of play, that loses a little bit of that aspect of it. So I would think that June 3rd would still be doable from that perspective.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to hold firm on June 3rd.
Any other discussion on that? Rosemary?
Nope, I'm not. I just was thinking that possibly it wasn't enough time.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second, yeah.
Yep, Doug seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Wu.
Members?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is the Transit Service Agreement. At your Committee of the Whole meeting last week, you did hear from Jesse Dean with the City of Brainerd with the new recommendations for the transit agreement. Just as a reminder, there were some changes that were made mid-2023 to how you all know that we did some service changes and fare increase changes. One of the things that we found is we don't have a whole lot of data from that yet that shows a real good, strong pattern of what that would be. However, we do have the expiring contract that expired with the transportation provider as of the end of June. So the contract renewal period would start for July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2027. With those changes that were made in '23, it actually will result in a 17% cost share for Crow Wing County versus the 35% that had been in previous contracts before. The other thing I will point out is that the transit agreement is now going to be a 3-year alignment with what the bus service agreement would be as well. So rather than just having these annual continuous renewals with the transit agreement, the agreement every time will come in conjunction with that service providing contract so that those two things can be looked at the same time and decisions made on how you want to proceed at that point. So the recommended action today, the ask, is to authorize entering into a transit service agreement between Crow Wing County and the City of Brainerd for the Brainerd-Crow Wing Public Transit System, effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other discussion, I would make the motion to move that board action.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is that you, Doug?
Yep.
Okay. Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, the final item that I have on the agenda is to schedule additional Transportation Advisory Committee meetings for 2024. If our county engineer has anything he wants to speak to on that, Tim?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you. This is a follow-on to the conversation that happened at the last board meeting and a request from Commissioner Coring to have improved communication between the the county board and the highway department and see us more often. In an alignment with that, I've suggested that the very first quarterly TAC meeting or Transportation Advisory Committee meeting be held on June 4th. That is next Tuesday, and that also falls in line with a special board meeting that we requested. And then every 3 months thereafter. We felt it was important to continue to have our meeting in March to finalize the 5-year plan and just backwards planning from that 3 months. So it'd be on the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 9th month, and the 12th month. So the proposal is to have quarterly TAC meetings March 3rd, June 4th, September 3rd, and December 3rd, and then modify the annual board calendar to reflect such so it can be considered a regular meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Mr. Chair, my one question to you is if you want these to be considered Transportation Advisory Committee meetings? Are these additional TAC meetings? Is this a subcommittee of the TAC? How would you like this to be worded?
We will have full board there, so it will be actually a public meeting.
Correct. It will be a public meeting.
Right.
If the full board is going to be there.
So
If-
other people could assemble and ride with us if there's room in the bus, correct?
Correct.
So,
Mr. Chair,
Chairman,
so Deb, just for clarification, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Commissioner Coring. What you're asking is if our appointees would come and that there's an additional
Correct.
cost for that?
That is correct. Are you looking to have a full Transportation Advisory Committee, which includes you as the 5 board members, plus your citizen appointees? Or is this a subcommittee of the TAC committee?
what, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What I guess I was envisioning this is the full advisory committee for the March meeting, and then all subsequent meetings, June, September, December, would be just the county board on the meetings. and have our appointees only on the March meeting. That's the way I envisioned it. I know my appointee, the way I sold him on the idea is I said, well, it's only one meeting a year, and he says, all right, then I'll do it. But I don't think, I can tell you, I know my appointee doesn't have time or doesn't want to take off of work to probably attend, 3 more meetings. And ultimately, this is the county board's decision on any transportation matters. I certainly want to hear from our appointees, but I guess I envision it that way of just having them at the March meeting. It's up to the board, but that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chair, Tim, I had indicated to you that I wanted mine invited to this first one. Has he been invited?
He is not, and so
I do support what Commissioner Coring is saying, that
Okay.
we just have the one full meeting a year and the rest is just the board.
Okay,
So I do support that, so you don't have to.
Okay. okay.
But if we do, and it is a public meeting as such, because we're all assembled, the public could come along, and if that public happens to be one of the TAC committee members that we have, could come along, whether we're inviting them or not, but
That
they
is
do
very
have a
true.
right to be there, correct?
Correct, yes.
I mean,
It will
for
be
full
published as a
transparency-
public meeting. It will be, I would suggest that it be published as the Transportation Advisory Committee Subcommittee, or the Transportation Advisory Subcommittee.
Right.
So that it is noted that it is part of that TAC group, but it's only the subcommittee of the 5 board members, of the 5 county commissioners. It will be published as an open meeting, and yes, would be available for any member of the public to attend, whether it is a appointee to the TAC committee or a general public person as well.
Right, so.
And Mr. Chair, even Renee Richardson can attend if she wants to.
She'd be more than welcome. You get a lot of pictures that way traveling in the bus.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm looking for a motion to schedule the Transportation Advisory Subcommittee meetings for June 4th, September 3rd, and December 3rd.
Motion to approve the request for board action to set the schedule additional Transportation Advisory Committee meetings for 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any additional business? Do we have? Then,
Motion to approve.
Really?
Motion to adjourn.
you sure you don't have a question on that yet, Paul?
No, I do not have
Okay.
any more questions.
So we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.